Welcome to Eat, Sleep, Wine, Repeat, a podcast for all you wine lovers who, if you're like me, just cannot get enough of the good stuff. I'm Janina, your host, brand ambassador, wine educator, and sommelier. So stick with me as we dive deeper into this ever-evolving, wonderful world of wine. And wherever you are listening to this, cheers to you.
Hello, wine friends. Today, we are taking a road trip across one of the most breathtaking and diverse wine regions on the planet. We're off to Washington State. You are going to discover how the mighty Cascade Mountains creates the perfect conditions for growing exceptional grapes, why Washington's AVAs are so dramatically different from one another, and which grapes truly shine here, from world-class Riesling and elegant Gamay to powerful Syrah and Cabernet Sauvignon. Joining me are Chris Stone and Avril Mooney from the Washington State Wine Commission. I first met them when we were on a dinner cruise down the Seine River in Paris, where we were drinking Washington wines. And I was immediately blown away by their knowledge, their enthusiasm, and storytelling. So beware, this is going to be a very fun episode. Today, together, they spend their time championing one of America's most exciting wine regions. And honestly, I don't think there's anyone better to guide us across it. By the end of the episode, you're going to know exactly which Washington AVAs deserve a place on your wine bucket list, how to plan the perfect wine trip through the state, and why this remarkable region should be on every wine lover's radar. So, pour yourself a glass of something delicious, get comfortable, and let's head to Washington State. Enjoy the episode. Okay, Chris, Avril, I want us to not only talk about Washington, but I need us to set the scene beforehand. So I have just landed in Seattle. I know nothing about Washington wine. So where are you taking me? Where are we going to drive to? Who goes first? What am I going to see out of the windows? My eyes are now closed. Go for it.
Are you prepared for the incredible beauty, first of all, of your first time in the PNW?
Yes, I am.
Because this is a pretty special place. Okay, so you've likely landed at SeaTac Airport. You probably spent the night in downtown Seattle. So we're waking up. It's a beautiful sunny day. You look out your window. You probably are seeing ferry boats gliding across Puget Sound. You may, if you're lucky, you're probably going to see an orca or two breaching in Elliott Bay.
What?
Yeah. Right now, this time of year, whales have been seen on a regular basis. The boats have to stop while the whales do their thing, playing in the water.
Yes.
But we're going to leave downtown Seattle because really, if you want to experience wine as a really in-depth experience near Seattle, we're probably going to take you to Woodinville, right, Avril?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're going to go to Woodinville. So
yes,
you've just watched these beautiful, like, serene setting of the ferries drifting across Elliott Bay. Now we're going to go hit the car. We're going to drive across a different body of water called Lake Washington, which happens to be the world's longest floating bridge. And so on a clear day, as you're driving across this floating bridge, you look to your south, you're going to see majestic Mount Rainier hovering over the region. You look to your north, because it's a clear day, you're going to see Mount Baker, another volcano. Whoa. And then we're going to arrive in a little town called Woodinville.
Mm-hmm.
And Avril, tell us about Woodinville.
Woodinville is just about 30 minutes outside of downtown Seattle, and it is what we lovingly refer to as Woodinville Wine Country. It is a place that is built up of producers, satellite tasting rooms, productions facilities, all housed in this tiny little town called Woodinville, where you can actually taste wines that were made from grapes from across the entire state. So though you are a part of the energetic, very picturesque Puget Sound corner of the state in Woodinville and Seattle, you're not surrounded by vineyards. So we are far away from the vineyards, but we are very up close and personal with the wines that are made from those grapes.
One of the key things about Woodinville and why it became a wine-focused little community is this is where Château Ste. Michelle, the kind of the founding winery of Washington State, chose their headquarters at the old Stimson farm. It's a beautiful property full of gardens, they have an incredible outdoor concert stage. But this is why Woodinville became a wine-focused, a center of the greater Seattle area.
And there's like over 100 wineries there, like cellar doors now that you can taste right there.
I think it's like over 120, 130.
Yeah.
It's
and
remarkable.
To Chris's point, Château Ste. Michelle was instrumental in bringing the spotlight to so many of our other producers for exactly that reason. Because Château Ste. Michelle opened up its doors, which called everybody to them for this tasting, and it allowed all these other small producers around the chateau to open up tasting rooms. So then you could go to Woodinville and not just taste Château Ste. Michelle, but taste wines from all over the state.
I feel like you can't have a conversation about Washington State wine, can you, without Château Ste. Michelle?
No.
They were certainly my first introduction to any Washington wine. And I mean, they are the largest. Do they not account for, is it 60% of the wines of Washington? Okay,
it's fluctuated. At the height of the industry, they were probably closer to 70%. And today, as we sit, I mean, my best guess would be they're 50 to 60%. But they're massive, and they're just such an integral part of the Washington wine story. And they have been such a great leader and kind of trailblazer for the industry, because they don't view any other Washington winery as their competition. They're trying to build a category, and they see it, the rising tide floats all boats, and we need the small guys to be successful for Ste. Michelle to be successful. So
I love that.
They're very much a team player, and they set that tone for the whole industry, and it is prevalent throughout the entire industry.
But what's funny about this is that Woodinville is such a rich part of the beginning of our story because of Château Ste. Michelle being this trailblazer and was big on the distribution. It got wines out not only locally, but nationally and internationally. They really led the charge on that. But in reality, Woodinville is actually a suburb of Seattle, which if you're looking at a Washington state map, we are nestled on the west coast in the Puget Sound. And boy, is there a whole lot of state when you start gazing east.
Yep.
So much of our historical story and love story of wine truly starts there. But we're not even talking grapes yet. We haven't even seen any vines yet.
Yeah.
You are so right. Now, interesting. I love how we started, and probably here we need days and days if we wanted to even go through all of these cellar doors. But you've actually, Chris, you started with "It's a clear day," la la la. Very happy with this. You're giving us the most perfect moment. But when we talk about Seattle, and therefore when people hear Washington, they probably think rain. So therefore, which is fair, when we're talking about rain, isn't Seattle supposed to be, in theory, the rainiest city in the world or something like that?
We have a reputation, that's for sure.
We are green and we are proud.
Yeah. There's definitely a reputation. Now, I will say that this time of year, which is also coincides with the growing season, it's the most magical place in the world. The weather here is darn near perfect. Summertime doesn't rain a lot. Yeah, and yes, it does rain a lot. There's a reason Western Washington is so green, so lush, and famous for rain. There are places on the Olympic Peninsula, just west of where we sit, out by the Washington coast, where they get an intense amount of rain because they're on the coast. And
so maybe that's where the reputation comes from.
Yes, we earn it totally authentically and with purpose, right?
Yes.
Because we have the Olympic mountain range down the west side of the state, and then we'll talk a lot about the Cascade mountain range, which almost cuts the state in half. So when you're trapped in between two mountain ranges, the weather patterns of such, it picks up the weather from the coast, and it all just sits in that beautiful Puget Sound region. But it's what allows us to be so lush and green. And like Chris mentioned, it's quite cyclical. So we've got a lot of rainy days and there's a lot of moisture coming, but there's also a ton of blue sky and bright green, vibrant forests around us. So it's all with purpose.
I love that. Now, you've mentioned the Puget Sound, which actually is an AVA, but this is the only one that is on the western side of the Cascade Mountains. So can you guys explain why the Cascade Mountains is so important for all the other grapes that are growing on the eastern side?
In a word, protection.
Mm-hmm.
It is this big kind of guardian of the vineyards in Eastern Washington as these weather patterns, kind of slam us from the Pacific Ocean. They hit the Olympic Mountains first and drop a ton of rain. And then they hit the Puget Sound where we are, and whatever moisture is left falls. But then they have to still get over the Cascade Range, which is a very large mountain range. This is where Mount Rainier is and all that string of volcanoes. So any energy left from these weather systems hits the Cascades, and they just don't have anything left. They drop all their moisture either as rain or snow. And by the time you hit the eastern side of the state, there's very little rain. I'm talking very little.
I looked it up on your map, 7 inches in a year, which for everyone in the UK is maybe around 150 millimeters of rain, which is almost negligible, basically, isn't it?
A grapevine needs, they say, 20 inches of water to survive the season, and we only get 6 to 7 per year out there.
So this is why then the rivers are so important. That's where they're getting their water from. And so from my understanding, we have the lush green and the west, and now when we get to the east, this is like desert-like. This is semi-desertic, right? So talk to me, take us back on our journey. Imagine we're driving and stopping. What are the different landscapes that we're going to see on this super dry side?
It's such a great question, because it is something that, like, the mood and the light, like, you see that transition happen in real life as you do it. And it's so powerful and beautiful, because you could fly from Seattle to Eastern Washington to save a bit of time, but 9 out of 10 times you drive, because you truly start in exactly what we've talked about, this dense, rich, mossy green west side of the state. And as you climb up through the Cascades, you see the trees and you crest over, and as soon as you come down, it is like arid and dry and open. There's like golden tones and huge skies, and you're just in the middle of this hot, dry ag mecca of land. It's quite powerful to see it like in transition as you drive across it.
My God.
Yeah, you drive these mountains and beautiful, like awe-inspired mountains. And then 20 minutes later, you're like, am I on the moon? Because this looks so different, and there's not a tree within 20 miles. But then you drop into Yakima Valley, and it opens up this world of agriculture, and you'll see apples and cherries. And I think 70% of the hops in America are grown right here in Yakima Valley. So hop fields, there's all kind of livestock, table grapes, wine grapes, tree fruits, everything.
Wow.
Every direction you look, you'll see farms growing something.
And so I guess this is why as well, this is a region that's so diverse. I mean, we should probably talk about the grapes. Now, I know that you grow up to like 90 different grapes, which is exciting, but there are, of course, the main ones. So what are the main grape varieties that someone should be looking out for or expecting when they find a Washington State wine?
Hard to use the expecting. We can speak to the top harvested grapes. For reds, we have Cabernet, Syrah, and Merlot. And whites, we have Chardonnay and Riesling. But to your point, we also have everything in between. But production number-wise, those are our top 5 for the classics between the red and the whites of Syrah, Merlot, Cab, Riesling, Chardonnay.
In the early days, what got this industry started was Riesling and Merlot. And I still believe we make the best Merlot in the world. I'm a big fan of Merlot, and I want to see a comeback for Merlot, so I'm going to put that plug in there for Merlot. Anyway,
interesting.
Merlot and Riesling got us started. Cabernet became the dominant red grape over time. It gets some phenomenal scores and critical reviews. But more recently, the area we've seen the most, I guess, enthusiasm for would be the Rhone category. So Syrah and Grenache and Mourvedre, incredible success with those. And on the white side, we're just seeing tons of success with just the aromatic white category. So Sauvignon Blanc, we mentioned Riesling, still very popular here. We're seeing success with Pinot Gris, any of the aromatic whites, Viognier, Roussanne, you name it. This is such a playground of experimentation. Like, you can literally do anything. Albarino. I should have mentioned Albarino. I've had some delicious Albarinos recently from Washington producers.
Okay. No, you know what? No, I'm going to bear with the questions of where we're going to find things. There are 21 AVAs, aren't there? So these are your American Viticultural Areas. So, and this has been growing massively. I think I was looking at the dates. Do not ask me to quote the dates, but I think you've got like 6 or 7 from memory new AVAs just in the last 6 years, So talk to me a little bit about, before we start imagining that we're driving through some of these AVAs, just give our listeners a sense of scale. What are the AVAs that people are most likely to find or most definitely need to know about?
We like to think of our AVAs as truly like microclimates, right? And so because of the vast transition from the West Coast to the East Coast, and then depending on the slopes, the sun, the soil, like you truly are able to have 21 different unique growing regions in just the remainder of the state. So depending on what part of the Columbia River you are around, or like what elevation you're climbing to as you head a little bit north in the state, 21 different unique microclimates are home to where we grow all of these grapes. So as Chris mentioned, we're able to do the whole swing between Cabernet and Albarino, because each one of those sites, as you drive across the states, is truly unique.
The one you're going to see most frequently, because it is kind of all-encompassing, is the Columbia Valley. And that's the most common one you're going to find on a label. And oftentimes, that is because what Avril just mentioned. You've got this, imagine you've got, you're cooking a meal, you got an entire spice rack in front of you. And you might want to choose some of this spice, some of that flavoring, some of that seasoning. Well, that's what they do here in Washington. You might pick some fruit from Horseheaven Hills, some from Red Mountain, some from Walla Walla. Well, then your only option then is to label it Columbia Valley, because they've pulled fruit from numerous AVAs. The ones you're going to see most often, Columbia Valley, as I just mentioned. Red Mountain has earned quite a reputation. That's a very small AVA, but also very focused AVA. You're going to find big, powerful Cabernet from Red Mountain. And then I would say Walla Walla, another very well-known, famous AVA you'll see on bottlings. And then lastly, I would say Yakima Valley.
Well, Yakima Valley is the first ever AVA. In fact, it beat the Columbia Valley, the big all-encompassing valley.
It sure did.
It beat it by 1 year, right?
And very proudly, yes.
I love that. So interesting. Let's start on, I've got some wines in front of me. So it's going to help me, I guess, guide us through our journey of the eastern side of Washington State, because otherwise, where the hell do we go? Because there's so much we could talk about.
Yes.
And perfectly, I have a bottle of Riesling from Château Ste Michelle, but not just Château Ste Michelle. It's a partnership, their wine with Ernst Lucen, which I love. For anybody who listens to my podcast regularly, you will know I had Ernie on the podcast, which was an absolute privilege because I felt like I had wine royalty on. So that was fabulous.
Fair.
So that was episode 218 for anyone who hasn't caught it. But how amazing to have 2 incredible wineries and their minds come together to make Riesling. So this is the Eroica. Interesting question. On the back of the label, it does say Columbia Valley, so are all-encompassing. But I do feel like I've read something that the fruit maybe comes from ancient Lakes AVA. But
that's true.
Right.
Sometimes you'll see a winery choose Columbia Valley just for consistency of labeling, and that gives them the chance to potentially in a year that maybe, weather impacts a certain vineyard, they can, source Riesling from somewhere else and not change the label.
It's more well-known.
Yeah.
Right? And especially a producer like Château Ste Michelle, who is like very prominent internationally. More people know the Columbia Valley than they know Ancient Lake.
So and they've been making that bottling since before Ancient Lakes was an AVA.
Was an AVA, totally. Yeah.
Interesting. So Ancient Lakes AVA, what makes this unique? So let's start here. We're not that far. We're kind of more in the northern part of the East. And what makes this quite special? What does this place look like, or what can it offer?
It is a very unique AVA. Even within Washington, it is a unique AVA. It is, like you said, very central. If you drove I-90 east over the Cascades, you would, as you crossed the mighty Columbia River, you would be right there at the Ancient Lakes area. It's a very cool area because it's very visually representative of the geological background of Washington. There's a lot of evidence of the Great Missoula Flood, which we'll talk about, I'm sure.
Yes.
But the AVA itself is northerly. Most of the vineyards in this AVA are planted at higher elevations, so it is generally cooler. And, you might be there and you look one way and you're going to see beautiful vineyards stretching out as far as you can see. You turn around and you're going to see barren desert landscape. And then you go a little bit further and you might put your eyes on or experience one of the world's best outdoor music amphitheaters, all looking over this deep river canyon as a Columbia River just kind of forges its way through the landscape.
You describe everything so beautifully. And now we know secretly that the Riesling I have in my hand is actually from this incredible place. And it's actually, because it's a Château Ste Michelle wine, it's available in the UK, everyone. And
Yay.
Probably one of the wines globally that is maybe easier to get your hands on. So this is about £20 in the UK. And everyone, I'm going to put retailers, if they exist, in the show notes. But yeah, about £20. And I'd love it. It's just pure mineral. It's lime zing, it's peach. And they've gone for a slightly more off-dry style. And that's my question, actually. Riesling for consumers is always a bit confusing. Is it going to be sweet? Is it going to be dry? I've always found that the Rieslings in Washington used to be a little bit more off-dry, and then they've kind of got drier over time. Is there any direction on Riesling, or it is purely producer's preference?
I would say producer preference. I mean, we do make Rieslings in every one of the styles you can imagine. The ones that are more, I would say, that have seen broad commercial success have been the dry to off-dry. Like that one you have there. There's so much acid in Washington, natural acidity, that even a little residual sugar, you don't even notice it because it just is so balanced with that natural acidity.
To be fair, this is explosions.
Yeah, you do. You see a lot of that because Riesling, especially those warm days and those cool nights, like that long hang time and the diurnal shift, it allows that acidity to stay. I would say characteristically, and Chris, you are definitely more of the expert on this than I, but Washington Rieslings in general are more of a New World fruit intensity and less of the petro, but the range in which that swings is totally producer preference, and you see a lot of both sides of that.
Okay. Well, also, you've touched on diurnal range, so the temperature swing from daytime to nighttime, which is actually, I think in the middle of summer, it can be 30 odd degrees, and then it goes down to 15, doesn't it? I'm talking in Celsius. Oh, no. Do we know?
We speak Celsius. That's fine.
Well, no, I've done it in Celsius. Can you please do it in Fahrenheit? What would it be in Fahrenheit?
Yeah,
it would be 90 something.
Growing season, the days are 90 to 100 degrees. So
okay, thank
34 to 40,
yeah.
And then it can drop dramatically at night. And this is a desert, high desert, continental climate. So it drops 40 degrees Fahrenheit in just a few hours.
A lot.
Yeah.
And what's cool is that that's quite consistent across all of the different microclimates and AVA. That's pretty consistent across the whole Eastern Washington, is that you have those longer, warmer days, temperature drops at night. So it varies obviously per AVA, the total swing, but you get that swing everywhere in Eastern Washington because of the desert climate.
And this AVA in particular is so close to the river, and the river is, I don't know what words I could use to describe how big this river is. It's the fourth largest river in the United States, but it really has a moderating effect if you have an AVA or vineyards that are near the river.
Okay. Actually, that's really interesting. Everybody, I happen to have a map. I know that a lot of people, when you're listening to podcasts, you're running, you're doing the washing up, and that's the ideal. Two things at once. But actually, especially with a wine podcast and really getting to know, hopefully everyone pull up a map on your phone, pull up a map on your laptop if you can, because I've got the map of Washington State in front of me, and it's actually great to see where the river runs and which regions are so close to the river and which ones aren't.
And the Columbia is just one of the rivers. It is the largest by far, but the Yakima River also is very important to the wine growing areas. The Yakima, the Snake, and the Columbia. The Columbia being, the big one.
Mm-hmm. Well, you talk about the big rivers, but let's talk about the floods, because actually, I think you have some of the biggest diurnals of any of the wine regions growing grapes. So that's one big thing. But the soils are actually really, really unique. And I'm sure you will be able to describe these floods that happened, was it 10,000 years ago?
Many thousands of years ago.
Many thousands of many moons ago.
Moons ago. And they happened numerous times as well. The largest documented floods in Earth's history. So they go all the way back to the last ice age. And a big ice sheet, as it kind of advanced southward, the ice sheets blocked the Clark Fork River and then made all the water back up into what was called at the time Glacial Lake Missoula. And it was this massive lake, bigger than, I think, the Great Lakes combined. Huge, huge, huge body of water. Well, ice does not function very well as a dam. So it would break, and then all of that water would come crashing across eastern Washington, absolutely ripping up everything in its path, churning it up. And then it would hit land formations that basically acted like a drain or the mouth of a funnel. And so the water would back up behind it as it tried to drain out. And then, like the ancient lakes we just talked about, you have these land formations that were formed by like back eddies, or they basically created potholes. But this water came ripping through, tearing up the landscape. I mean, walls of water that are, I don't know that we can, as humans, comprehend how much water this was. But as it drained out, it dropped out the heavier sediment first, so gravels and large rocks, and then later smaller particles. And so you've got this really well-drained, nutrient-poor soil that is perfect for growing wine grapes. All because of the Missoula Floods.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you have the volcanic bedrock as well.
Yes.
So it's a very unique combination.
Yes. Yeah, before the floods, we had the largest lava flows, but not from the mountains, not from the volcanoes. They were like fissures in the Earth's crust that opened up, and basalt just poured out. So this huge basalt foundation across most of the eastern Washington, even flowing into Willamette Valley in Oregon. Massive, massive amounts of basalt is the foundation before the flood deposits on top of that.
What is it about the flows, volcanic flows, water flows? Something mysterious about this
But don't get the wrong impression. This is not a dangerous place.
No, it's like a beautiful piece of art, right? Like it was all this natural, regularly occurring like soil types and elements. And then the floods were able to pick it up and just mix it all around, and then everything like resettled. So like you couldn't have designed that more perfectly. Like you have a little bit of all these different pieces of geographical regions all in like different spots. And yet it's quite like, it's kind of beautiful because it lends itself to like these different soil types. And then like you have this crazy elevation and these random boulders. And it's kind of cool how it happened.
It's beautiful. Sunshine valleys, volcanic hills, riverbeds. Well, let's move to another AVA because I poured myself another glass of wine.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you for that. You can clap every time I pour myself another glass. So next, let's go to Columbia Gorge AVA. So what are we seeing here? And by the way, for anyone listening, I've got Gamay in my glass, which
we'll cap her Gamay.
Yes,
we always clap for Gamay.
Yes, talk to me, guys. Talk to me about 1, Columbia Gorge, 2, this winery called Syncline. I've never heard of them. I know they're quite a niche producer from just doing a quick look up. So not available in the UK, guys. Gonna have to come to Washington. But talk to me about the area.
So it's funny because here we are saying like, all of Eastern Washington shares these same characteristics. I would say the Columbia Gorge is kind of where we start to be like, well, except because the Columbia Gorge AVA is our westernmost eastern AVA. Say that 3 times fast. But what's unique about that sentence and worth noting is that all of the other AVAs that we've mentioned so far share that same arid, dry, characteristical like story that we've just painted. But because the Columbia Gorge AVA is nestled back up to the Cascade Mountain range that we talked about, you're now folding in a bit more of the like maritime climate, and it's a lot more windy, and you've got the cooler climate, and it's a little bit greener. So you have all of the classic growing characteristics of this Eastern Washington thing that we've mastered, but you're building in a bit more of what we started with in the Seattle rainforest. So it's this cool combination of kind of like both of the growing climates.
Yep. It's like it's the whole state in one small area. I mean, on the western edge of the AVA, you're basically in the Cascade Mountains. I mean, you're on the eastern foothills of the Cascades, and then every mile you drive east, you lose an inch of rainfall. So by the time you hit the eastern edge of the AVA, it's a desert.
Wow, okay.
You go from like mountains and forest literally to desert in like 40 miles. And you can imagine what that means for a wine grower or winemaker. You have the world at your fingertips. You can do anything there.
So you've said that this one actually is quite different. Is there any other AVAs that would also really surprise others that is kind of a little bit more different than what you're expecting from Columbia Valley?
I mean, you mentioned it at the beginning, the Puget Sound AVA, which is our one AVA that is on the western side of the state, classically is almost polar opposite of everything that we've talked about.
I would say the other AVA that people may not know about that is unique from the rest of the state would be Lake Chelan. Now we're going further up north, but it is a very unique growing area. It is very much defined by a single body of water in a very deep, glacially carved lake.
The soils are actually different up there.
They are.
I think I'm looking at my map again. I think Lake Chelan and then next to it, Rocky Reach, those two AVAs are the only two that have slightly different soils to everybody else.
Yeah. That is true. And the Rocky Reach area is very much cobblestones and really granite, which is very different than the basalt we see everywhere else.
Good, I was right. You did. Yeah. I was waiting. I was like, I think it's granitic, and no one said anything. But yay! Yeah. Okay, good. I remembered.
And then Chelan itself just sits in this pocket around this incredibly beautiful lake. Not a ton of vines there, not a ton of acreage because it's such a popular recreational area and a lot of vacation homes and summer recreation, actually year-round recreation. But it is a very unique AVA in the sense that it just is different than the rest of the Columbia Valley.
And I think, this is a bold sentence to say in a public forum, but I think it might be one of the only sub-AVAs of the Columbia Valley that does not have any basalt bedrock anywhere in there.
Interesting. Well, all I know from when I read it was it was a completely different soil type than everywhere else. So I think, you could be right in saying that. Anyway.
And what's cool about that for the Lake Chelan too, is it is a totally different soil type, but it's also one of its top producing varieties is Syrah, which is one of Washington in general's like highest production ones. So to taste the Syrah from the Lake Chelan region versus Yakima, it's the same grape, but it gives totally different soil quality, like totally different characteristics. So it's a fun AVA to have in the mix for what it contributes to the like palette and portfolio of Washington styles.
Okay, so that's cool. So, I think we do have to go to Yakima, but just before I finish, this Gamay is silky, but big, as in like I'm getting a cherry raspberry pie or raspberry coulis or like raspberry balsamic and there's spices and just feels so voluptuous. It's quite a sexy Gamay.
I love putting that wine in the fridge too, getting a little bit chilled down. It's just delightful.
Oh my gosh, everybody. I just love Gamay. This is the perfect summer wine. I've looked, it's not available in the UK, but I think it seems it's about 40. It's not a cheapie, and I don't expect to be. It's delicious. $45, I think, from some retailers online in America, if people can find it.
That sounds about right.
Worth tracking it down.
Oh, worth every penny.
Totally. And I think they're a young couple. I did write this down. That are really about like native yeast and foot treading and whole cluster ferments. And that may be why I'm getting this kind of explosive.
Wild, savage. Yeah, you're right though. This is James and Poppy Mantone who own this winery. Very much about the place, the land. These are all estate grown grapes. He owns every vine that goes into that wine and he knows each vine like the back of his hand. He's very connected to the land.
Yeah, I would comment that like his estate, like his property looks exactly like that wine tastes. Like the connection between the wines and the property are like, makes sense.
I love that. And it's got this note, like, you know, when you're cleaning up the barbecue and you've used like a brush of rosemary or herbs, you're cleaning up to kind of tidy it. So it's that slightly smoky, slightly ashed, stalky, stemmy green herb explosion. There we go. That's it.
I love it.
Okay.
Love it.
All right. So,
Pour me a glass.
yeah.
I know. Can I have some?
Well, yes, guys, you can. You're all the way over in Washington State. Half
Yeah,
of us listening,
we know where to
we
get
can't. Okay, so Yakima Valley, the first AVA from 1970
83.
or 1980.
83.
In 1983,
Yeah.
I was reading that back in the 70s, there was like 10 wineries. And I mean, now we have, I love how I said we. Oh my God, I just included myself.
You're one of us. You're on this. We'll take you.
We now have
Welcome to the team.
over 1,000. Thank you. That was an easy interview, wasn't it?
Yes.
I'm hired. We now have over 1,000 wineries, which is just crazy just to think that in the 1970s, there was like 10.
Yeah, when I got involved in the Washington wine industry in 1999, and I vividly remember somewhere around the turn of the century, we had about 100 wineries. And by 2005, when I joined the Wine Commission, we were approaching 300. And the growth from that 5 years from 100 to 300 was like, wow, can this be sustained? And then, of course, here we sit today with 1,000. And it's just been this rocket ship of growth and enthusiasm and excitement about this region and what it could be.
Why do you think it's growing so fast?
Just unlimited potential. I think people have realized, that you can make truly world-class wines. And there's no rules. I mean, you can do whatever you want here. Land is still affordable, and you experiment. And because the land's affordable, if the experiment doesn't work, try something else.
I would also comment that there is a network of people that want everybody to succeed. So being able to tap into your neighbor or pull from other else's experiences and share resource data and research and equipment. Like the camaraderie is something that like as a marketing agency, we always note and we talk about a lot, but like it truly is something that exists in Washington, and that has allowed the same way that Château Ste. Michelle opened the doors for all these other producers to get visibility. That continues on through the lineage of these producers that move forward because people just help people and people are all on the same team.
We're building something together.
Yeah. And what's unique about Washington too is that we are more of a vineyard forward state in that fewer places have estate vineyards and more producers are sourcing from the same vineyards. So by nature and by like functionality, like that camaraderie is built from like wanting, you're all using the same fruit and you're all doing the same thing. So to like share knowledge, you see that happening.
I like that. I always think when I speak to people who are representing a wine region, the ones that have this very collaborative approach, it's almost like that is how they were able to get their wines out of that country and now starting to see
same team,
global.
right? Same team.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So, and I love the point you just said about being able to experiment because, am I allowed to say Napa on this podcast?
Goodness.
Am I allowed?
Well,
Are you interested in auto parts? We could talk about your car repairs like if you want.
Well, all I was going to say is that, Napa has this fame and what also means that the prices have skyrocketed.
Yes.
But it also means that the land is so expensive and that from talking to winemakers, many of them say, do you know what? If we've got some land, we need to plant Cabernet Sauvignon because that's what we can sell and actually make the money. But if we want to go and plant Albarino or try some Acertico or try whatever it is some Sangiovese, they've got to be super brave, have a huge bank account, hopefully, or whatever it is, because actually it limits them because they're not going to make the money to probably be able to do that. Whereas it's exciting, like you've just said, that winemakers here can go, hey, let's give this a go. Let's give this a go. Yeah.
And nobody in Washington would claim that we have discovered our best vineyard land yet.
Interesting.
There's still so much to explore and discover and understand. Yes, we've got some incredible world-class vineyards, but I think, we're still a baby in this wine world. 50, 60 years old as an industry, That's nothing when you look at the global wine history. So we're still, learning and still discovering. That's what's so beautiful about Washington. It is such a place of endless discoveries.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so much to explore and so much to discover.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, the Syrah I'm having is lovely. I looked them up. I think they
Tell us more.
I will tell you more. I am drinking Dineen Vineyards Syrah 2021. I think they throw in a little bit of Viognier in there. Look at them doing their own, doing a little coat roti magic. But again, what I love, I'm not going to go into big tasting notes, everyone, but there's such plush fruit concentration. But again, it's that acidity backbone that just makes it still feel fresh, even though I know I'm having a really quite full-bodied wine here. Gorgeous, gorgeous fruits and some really nice spicy notes. But how would you mentioned that Syrah from Yakima Valley would be so different from up in Lake Chelan. In what way would it be a little bit? Is it richer and fuller down in Yakima, would you say?
That's a really good question and a really hard one to answer because, and here's why, because Syrah is such a chameleon. I mean, it can be made in a huge range of styles, even within Yakima Valley. I mean, and just for the listeners, Yakima Valley is the first, but the upper Yakima Valley to the lower Yakima Valley is also quite different. So on one end, you've got places like the Rattlesnake Hills and Red Willow, which can create, higher elevation, lighter, prettier, more floral, Syrah. And then you go down the valley to, say, Red Mountain, the hottest AVA in the state, and Syrah can be rich and powerful and bold and dense. So, and it just can be so many different things. And even within Yakima Valley, it can show so many personalities.
Well, now you did say that Red Mountain, I mean, this is really dry. This is Cabernet Sauvignon County. I have a Red Mountain Cab Sav.
Perfect.
From Kiona. This is their 2019. And by the way, I'm very excited to try this in a second because I've heard that these guys, apart from the fact that they've been around for like 50 years, they really pioneered this region. And I think they've had like a Lifetime Achievement Award, haven't they, for what they've done. So I'm just so excited to be trying a wine from this producer.
As a relatively young region, this, I believe, Avril, correct me if I'm wrong, but our first third generation property. So Kiona was the founders of Red Mountain. Them with Ciel du Cheval across the street were the first people to plant grapes on this barren, remote desert landscape. And it proved out to be a very good decision. But they third generation operators, winemakers, farmers, right in the heart of Red Mountain. And Red Mountain is a very small but perfect situated southwest facing slope that's just perfect for growing big, powerful, bold Cabernet Sauvignon.
And our favorite thing about Red Mountain is that it's not red, nor is it a mountain. So memorable from the start.
Well, I'm glad you pointed that out because actually to the east, there's also a new AVA called Candy Mountain. So can you just confirm to everyone that there isn't candy on that mountain?
We've all played Candyland, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit like that.
Yeah. No, unless you consider grapes candy.
The sugar content, that could work.
But what's really cool about these guys as well, I love that they're making ice wine. Apparently, am I right? I wrote this down, that their flagship is actually Lemberger, which is Blaufränkisch in Austria, but Limburger is how you call it over in Washington State. So that's like one of their flagships. They grow Sangiovese, Malbec. So yes, I've got their Cab Sav, which is the king of Red Mountain, but they are experimenting with loads.
And they
of
grow
grapes.
grapes for something like 60 different producers.
Well, that's what I was going to comment, is that they kind of embody like the Washington spirit as a single producer and a grower, because they were instrumental in establishing Red Mountain from the planting side of it. And they not only have mastered the growing and sell their wines to a bunch of different producers, but they also now are producing wines under their label. So they're kind of the best of both in that sense. But they are.
Oh my gosh. I am so in love with this wine. I think it's a $65 wine from, I guess, their cellar door. And actually the one before, was about $47. These are not cheap wines. Although everyone, I will point out, even in England, you can get Columbia Valley wines for 10 to 15 pounds. So you really can. But I love that I'm being treated with some of the most excellent.
Also keep things in perspective against this quality of Cabernet you're drinking relative to, say, Napa Valley or Bordeaux. I mean, yeah, they're not cheap, but they are incredible, bang for your buck.
I want to say what I read on one of your PDFs going back, and I don't know if it's an older PDF, so tell me if I'm wrong, but actually you compared different countries that had 90 plus points. So for anybody who's not aware, anything above 90 plus up to 100 is considered a really good wine. And you were comparing countries, and 46%, I think 45% of Washington wines were getting above 90. And the only country that had higher than you with 1% was France, and they had submitted over 4,000 wines, and in this statistic you'd only submitted 700. And it was absolutely just looking at the price point. The next slide, I'm trying to do this from memory. Why have I not got it in front of me?
This is amazing. You're doing great.
The wines from Washington State that were submitted were on average something like $50, and the wines that were being submitted from France on average were 97. I love that's the number in my head. So it really was. You guys should be leading with stuff like that. Like the quality of what you're getting, and like you said, bang for buck. Obviously, choose your price point. What is available to you as a human being, but you really are actually getting great quality here.
Absolutely, and that holds true whether you're spending $10 or 100. I mean, it's going to over-deliver.
Historically, we've always been able to hang with the cool kids. Always.
Also crystal clear that putting stats like that forward is not us trying to say we're better than. We're just trying to say that we belong in the conversation with the great wine regions of the world. And they're just different. We have a unique style that belongs in the conversation. And everybody should seek them out.
That's right.
Well, okay. What we have to, we cannot have this podcast without talking about Walla Walla. So let's finish in terms of AVAs here. Why is this region getting so much more attention? Am I right? Back in the day, I don't know what days these are, that actually Walla Walla had, it was like it has culture, it has history. People were hanging out and congregating here and not Seattle. This was a place for people. I don't know. Is that fair?
You are correct.
Yes.
Walla Walla is definitely home to the vines and the arts and culture, right? Like Seattle has the old arts and culture and the restaurant and the city and the this, but we don't have the vine. Eastern Washington is this ag-rich land. Walla Walla kind of embodies both of those. It's the biggest hub. It's the largest concentration of tasting rooms in Washington State. It's home to some of the first bonded wineries in Washington. So you have this like historical perspective, these really old vines. You've got really unique growing microclimates, to talk about that again, because we introduced the Blue Mountains, which is another mountain range it reintroduced on the eastern side of the state. So it allows you to be in wine country with the city feel of restaurants and arts and culture in this small town.
Yeah, they have an incredible tourism infrastructure that wine tourists are looking for, high-end hotels, wonderful restaurants.
So would you recommend people to base themselves here if actually they had to choose one place to enjoy maybe some nightlife, some nice restaurants, and to go out to vineyards during the day? Is this probably an easy one?
It's one of them. It's one of.
Yep.
I mean, it's so hard to pick. I mean, honestly, spending a couple of days in Walla Walla, we've already talked about the Columbia Gorge. Holy smokes, talking about beautiful. And Chelan, stunning. There's so much to offer.
I would say more well-known, more established, more easily plug-inable for like all of those things. It has the vine, which if you're doing wine country, you want to do the vine. Seattle obviously is like the Pacific Northwest mecca of recreation and restaurants and all of that. And you can taste wines from all over the state. But if you're deep diving into wine country, Walla Walla is certainly one of the places that you should base yourself. But to Chris's point, one of many.
So I have to just say, I am now experiencing something quite special with the wine I've got. So I'm happy to tell everyone this is another great variety they wouldn't, I was going to say wouldn't expect, but you have said Rhone Valley grapes are becoming more of a thing. This is Grenache, and this is from Grosgrain as a winery. So I'm drinking the 2022, and oh my gosh, again, another wine that can be chilled down, but this is like musky florals and rose petals and beautiful, beautiful red fruits. It's so perfumed. It's so pretty, and the texture's just divine. So I just had to point out. And yet again, everyone here in the UK, it's not available. But this is gotta come to Washington. This is €32 on their site. But my gosh, it just feels. This feels so delicate. And again, what I've really enjoyed about drying all these wines is considering there's so much sunshine and this is desert-like conditions, this is not what you would necessarily expect. And that's all because of, I think, the Diana range, the great acidity that the wines have, and quite clearly just great winemaking where I reckon Grosgrain are being very sensitive with they're definitely either using no oak or very, very little oak. And I think they're being very, very delicate with their extractions. And it's just really beautiful to see so many different styles in just the bottles I've got, which is just amazing. Really is amazing.
And Grosgrain is the perfect example too of this kind of new wave of producers that Washington is seeing. They are younger. Him and his wife, Matt and Kelly Austin, both had previous careers as professional adults and not even related to wine in the business sector of Seattle and down in California. She was, I think, a fashion designer, and they moved out to Walla Walla, bought this property that had previously had grapes on it, and are now experimenting with what they can do with the land that they have with grapes. And they are making these incredibly, very stylistically unique wines with the help of the Walla Walla Valley community, right? So like plugging into the talent and to the resources that are there and trying their hand at this with like such curiosity and excitement, and like look at the result of that. Like, is that not the coolest way to produce a product of love, is like through genuine like grit and like, let's try this, right? Because everybody in this state, I would say, especially those that have ended up in the winemaking position, has come to wine from having fallen in love with a Washington wine, if not multiple producers, right? Like you claim your palate, your producers, you like your style. And then when you try your hand at it, like to be able to kind of like 2.0 that version it's so fun to see. And I think that Grosgrain is a great example of that. And a little bit like different generations of like humans, they are kind of steering away from the oaky, bigger, saturated, historically like the Leonettis and the Figgins kind of wines, which are beautiful in their own right, but trying to do something a little bit more like niche, like lighter style, less intervention, like you mentioned, like different types of approaching, vineyard approach and winemaking, minimalistic winemaking. And so it's just fun to see everybody is kind of taking what has been done with such success and such like care and being like, what if we did a this? What if we did a this? And Grosgrain is kind of like the cool example of like, what about this?
They definitely are cool, because it was only around Christmas time that I was drinking their Pet Nat. So their Pétillant Naturel, their sparkling wines made in the ancestral method, effectively, with Semillon. So that was absolutely brilliant. And I remember looking them up, and they're now planting the 3 Cava grape varieties. I don't know if they've done it yet, but with the plan of making America's first... the sparkling wine with Cava grapes. They've got Aglianico. They've got Lemberger as well. I mean, Nebbiolo, I think. I mean, I'm like, these are another example of people that are just not sitting around and going Cab Sav Riesling. And
what's funny, a fun connection is they actually made a pet nat out of Kiona's Lemberger. Isn't that funny?
Hey, of course they did. And we bring it all together. I love that. Right. I have one wine, which I'm going to save for another time. I'm not even going to open it, but this is actually a special wine. So we do actually have to mention it because, everyone, this is also probably one of the wineries that you are most likely to find as well globally. And that's Le Col number 41. I've loved all their wines. When I was a sommelier, I used to sell their wines. This is the Perigee. Would they pronounce it Perigee?
That's right.
So 2020, so it's a Bordeaux blend, but they have their Apogee, and I was tasting at Wine Paris at your Washington stand, their Ferguson, which was just, divine.
Yes.
So they do some really special Bordeaux blends, but I was also tasting, they had a Semillon that had the most gorgeous texture. But these guys, what did I write down? Because I couldn't remember, because they just awarded so much. It's insane. Okay.
So much, yeah.
They have been awarded 12 times, not 11, not 10, 12 times Winery of the Year from Wine and Spirits Mag.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, God, they're just...
That Ferguson that you mentioned actually won Decanter's Best Bordeaux Blend in the world a handful of years ago. In the world!
The guy behind the stand told me that, and he told me that when it won Best in the World, it was from 3-year-old fruit as well.
Yeah, I know. They're one of the early bonded wineries in Washington State. So like historically, like a huge part of Washington's story, incredibly instrumental in the support of the industry and the growth, like very, all of the things that Washington is. And it's still so cool to see them evolving with like their Semillon. They're now doing 100% Sauv Blanc from Frenchtown Vineyard, which is this really cool vineyard. Like they're continuing to expand their portfolio to grow with the industry. So like they have the historic, and they're still very much a part of the conversation. And fun thing about the Apogee and the Perigee, like from the storytelling side of it, it's the Apogee and Perigee are like the distance between God, as soon as I start to tell the story, I'm going to totally butcher it. Thank God you can edit this. But it's like the stars, the constellations. Apogee is the farthest point away from the sun, and Perigee is the closest. And so the names of the wines, Apogee and Perigee, are relation to how far the vineyard is from the winery. Well, the Perigee wine is the farthest out, and the Apogee wine is the closer one. So they're just a really cool brand.
I don't even need to taste this, just because everyone, I know I will taste it when I have time, and actually it's going to definitely deserve being decanted. I want to get it at the perfect temperature. This is available in the UK. Actually, normally it's about £72, but Simply Wines Direct has discounted it to $64.99. So hopefully wherever you are in the world, you can find a Le Col number 41, and you can't go wrong.
Don't walk.
You've heard it here first, or maybe not first. You've heard it here again, and you've heard it many times. Okay, let's sum this up. I think you've given people a really lovely idea of actually coming to visit and places to see or where to stay. But in addition to wine, where are we sending people? Is there, there's got to be amazing national parks. Obviously, surely we can do some mountain hikes.
Absolutely. We've got Mount Rainier. We have the North Cascades for alpine scenery, the Olympic National Park, coastal rainforest. Seattle, in and of itself, is a full sentence. Seattle. It's got their restaurants. It's got access to not just the great wines, but home of breweries and distilleries and cideries and, craft beverages of all kinds. We've got farm to table, because we talked about Eastern Washington being over the mountains, but like in a sense of place, it's truly so accessible. So with our ag-rich accessibility, the restaurants are thriving. The like outdoor recreation world is like rich with like all of the supporting accommodations that you want to go on an adventure. You take ferry rides, you see orcas, go out to the San Juan Islands, go boating. What don't we have?
Okay. Fine. There you go. It would be a quicker list. Right. To sum up, what's the most unusual grape that you've seen growing in Washington that's going to surprise people? The most unusual.
There is a producer called Cardis, which, funny how many times Lake Chelan has come up. His home is in the Lake Chelan Valley, AVA, and now has tasting rooms in Woodinville and Seattle, but very accessible, beautiful Rhone wines. They are growing Pic Cardon. The stat, I believe, is that they are one of 4 producers in the whole United States that are growing it.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Pic Cardon. So it's a Pic Cardon. It's a white grape, one of the 13 permitted actually in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, interestingly. Yeah. How cool. Okay, I like this. Right. That wins. That does qualify for most unusual.
It wins as a surprise. None of the other ones I'm going to label as a surprise because it's not a surprise. It's just you haven't discovered it yet. Because nobody's going to taste an Albarino and be like, wow, I am so surprised that goes there. You're going to taste the Albarino and be like, absolutely. And that goes for Gewürz and Chenin and Viognier. And I guess Viognier is more common, but over 85, but almost 90 different varieties are here. And not just here, but like being produced and being played with and being presented. So
now, I love this. You have your last opportunity. There an AVA that's quietly up and coming that deserves more attention that we haven't actually mentioned? One that everyone listening can just go and investigate after this podcast.
I would say the Rattlesnake Hills.
Okay.
And funny thing about the memorable name Rattlesnake Hills, there's actually a petition within the town to change it to just the Hills, because Rattlesnake Hills, when you're talking about imagery and wine and the sense of place. But it is what Dineen Vineyards, you tried the Dineen Syrah, the sub of Yakima Valley. It is getting a lot of attention lately. A couple of the big wine reviewers that we have hosted have been doing deep dives into the Rattlesnake Hills. And it was instrumental in us creating our Sustainable Washington programming, which is a industry-led certification in sustainability. And so their vines and the people that are there are very focused on the sustainable. I know that's kind of a bit of a trigger word, like these days trendy, but like it's very important. And by way of like growing and agriculture first, they are like huge in that. And I think that what they have been doing, people have been garnering the information from and using it, and to now kind of get attention to start. Like Dineen is a perfect example. Dineen is a grower and they are farmers for forever. And now she's starting to put her name on bottles to start showing like the sense of place from Rattlesnake Hills. So I would say Rattlesnake Hills is a really exciting story to tell that people are starting to listen to.
I love this. Do you know what? We need a part 2, but for now,
please.
I guess, this is amazing. So, Chris, Avril, thank you so much.
So thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure to be on with you and share a little bit about Washington. I do encourage everyone to come experience it firsthand. And it's just, like I said before, endless discoveries. And you will want to come back so much more.
And we must genuinely do this again because it is so much fun.
This is just the beginning. We could seriously, truly talk for hours. And you know what's better? You get that cute little microphone and those headphones and come to Washington and we'll do this in person.
Sold.
No.
I'm going to get my ticket now. Thank you.
Please
Thank
do.
You so
we
much.
would happily have you.
So that brings us to the end of today's journey across Washington State wine. And of course, there's still so much more to cover. But if you have any thoughts or questions, you're going to find my email in the show notes, along with all the links to the wines we tasted, the producers, more information on Washington's wine regions and themes. And if you'd like to explore something more personal, I also create bespoke wine tastings tailored to you, whether that's for friends, clients, celebrations, or pure curiosity. You can simply get in touch via the details in the show notes. Next week, I am joined by Maureen Downey, widely regarded as the world's leading expert on wine fraud. And we are diving into a side of wine most people never see. Now, to finish today's episode, a wine quote as always, and this is from the American writer and editor Clifton Fadiman. And he said, "To take wine into our mouths is to savor a droplet of the river of human history." I love that idea because in Washington State, that river is not just metaphorical. The soils we explored today, shaped by ancient floods, volcanic activities, and those powerful Missoula Floods, quite literally carry the memory of moving water, reshaping the land, and creating the incredible diversity we see in the vineyards. If you have enjoyed this episode or found value in it, please do leave a review on Apple Podcasts, a rating on Spotify, or wherever you're listening. And if you think a fellow wine lover would enjoy it, share it with them. It genuinely helps the podcast grow and keeps these conversations going. Have a brilliant week ahead. Stay curious, keep exploring, and keep tasting widely. Until next week, wine friends, cheers to you.